Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about Iran. And I have here the Memorandum of Understanding, and I checked 6 minutes ago, and it has not changed yet. I'd like to read from Section 2. The United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran undertake to respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity and to refrain from interfering in each other's internal affairs. And that causes me to tell J.D. Vance that this is here a democracy. Don't tell us what to think or to say. Okay, so let's start with the issue of this MOU. Yossi Kuperwasser. Is it good, bad, or in between?
It's a bad MOU because of many reasons. First of all, it gives the Iranians a lot without giving us anything in the first stage. Secondly, it connects Lebanon to Iran, as this was already discussed. This is a big mistake. Thirdly, it gives legitimacy to the regime in Iran that we shouldn't have given because of everything they have done so far. And fourthly, what we get on the nuclear issue is very ambiguous, and the only thing that we have gotten is a commitment of the Iranians to do something about the enriched uranium they have. Not clear what exactly they are going to do. So if you add it all up, it's a bad MOU.
Do you think it's an actual reliable MOU, or is it just a fake-out?
No, it's not a fake-out. I think it reflects the interest of the United States to reach an agreement with Iran and to end the war in a way that would enable them to say that they have taken care of the Iranian nuclear project, but in return to allow Iran, the regime in Iran, to stay in power for a long period of time. And this is something we are really concerned about. We have to remember, when we went to this war together with the Americans, there were certain goals that we said that we are going to achieve. Most of them are those that can be achievable through the use of air power. And we managed to achieve these goals. We hit hard the Iranian nuclear infrastructure, including this that is necessary in order to weaponize. We hit hard the ballistic missiles production. We hit hard the leadership. We hit hard the scientists. We hit hard the military. We did a lot of things that can be achieved through the use of air power. But we had also all kinds of goals that cannot be achieved directly through the use of air power. And that we should have known in advance that it's going to be very difficult to achieve, especially since we should have known that the Iranians are going to use the capability to close the Hormuz Straits.
Emily, MOU, good, bad, or something else?
Well, I think everyone here who knows me knows I think this is an absolutely horrendous MOU. I do think it's serious, unfortunately. And I think one of the biggest problems with the part that you just mentioned, that you opened this segment with, is that saying we're not going to interfere in the territorial integrity or the internal affairs of the Islamic Republic, given that this is a regime which has 47 years of gross human rights violations, that recently, just on the cusp of launching this operation, slaughtered 40,000 people, their own people, in the streets, that continues to execute people every single day, that has thousands of people who are sitting in prisons that are undergoing torture simply for protesting, many of them being accused of being Mossad or whatever else the regime wants to put on them. To say for the United States, the defender of freedom, right? The leader of the free world, to respond to everything that's happened by saying we're not going to intervene in the internal affairs of Iran is completely unacceptable. As long as this regime continues to exist, there must be international pressure on the internal affairs. Otherwise, we're just talking over the Iranian people. Again, this cannot continue as is.
Excellent. All right. Let's talk about ballistic missiles, which are not mentioned in this document. Yossi, can you tell us what the real threat is of ballistic missiles now? And let's include the Gaim family of missiles, the 105, the 120, which are being developed now, which will come in from outer space, please.
Well, first of all, to tell the Israelis or even the Americans who visit Israel quite often, as the people in this room do, what is the threat of the Iranian ballistic missiles, it's a little bit ridiculous. Everybody experienced it here in Israel for so many times. We've been running to the shelter so often, so I think it's ridiculous to tell you what is the threat of the ballistic missiles. But I think that what we have to realize is that what the Iranians had in mind, and that was repeatedly said by the American administration in the beginning of the war, the idea was to have so many ballistic missiles that the ballistic missiles can replace the threat of the nuclear weapon. That was the idea. That's why not including the ballistic missiles in this agreement is very problematic, to say the least. And we have to make sure that they are not allowed to produce them. Definitely not the kinds of ballistic missiles we already saw that they are able to reach. Diego Garcia with 4,000 kilometers range ballistic missiles. These missiles can reach almost everywhere in Europe, and they are planning to have ballistic missiles that can reach the United States as well. So if you don't deal with the ballistic missiles, it's a huge mistake. And on top of all of that, I think that the ballistic missiles should be seen also as a part of the nuclear project. Because how are you going to deliver the nuclear warheads if you don't have a ballistic missiles? The big mistake of the JCPOA was that it was preventing Iran from developing ballistic missiles that are designated in order to carry a nuclear warhead. But if the ballistic missile was not designated but can carry such a warhead, nothing was said about that. I think by now we have to make sure that we have some clause that prevents Iran from developing ballistic missiles that can carry nuclear warheads. And this is almost every ballistic missiles that I have the plan to produce, as you mentioned, all the new, even those they have now, and definitely the new ones that are going to produce.
Yes, because now they're going orbital and non-ballistic, especially with the Gaim series. Emily, you spoke passionately about the Iranian people and the fact that 42,000 of them were slaughtered. They slaughtered their own neighbors. They will do, think of what they would do to us. One of our aspirations was that somehow there would be a new, free Persian people in Iran, that this terrible mullah regime would be overthrown. What do you believe is the future for these people now?
I still believe that there will be, at some point or another, regime change. I haven't changed my position on that. I didn't think that would be achieved through a war. I don't think it can be achieved through a war. It really has to come from the people. However, it can be enabled, which is what we were hoping to see, and actually what we heard from both the United States and from Israel at the time of the beginning of the operation. That said, it looks like the timeline is going to take a little bit longer. It doesn't give me any pleasure to say that, because I know that the price of time is being paid in the blood of the Iranian people. And the fact that the international community doesn't seem to understand that is extremely disturbing. It sets a very bad precedent. It's not a deterrent. It actually encourages human rights violations because it shows that there's no accountability. And it shows that even with this memorandum of understanding, that you can even be rewarded when you treat your own people this way and when you behave this way. Now, one of the things that's so frustrating about this MOU and the whole way that this war was managed is that President Trump unilaterally declared a ceasefire very suddenly at the same time that the IDF was actually striking Besiege, which are IRGC checkpoints that they set up in cities. Now, this is one of the mechanisms that the regime uses to prevent large-scale protests from building inside Iran. They have been worried about this since the last wave of violence between Israel and the United States. Very, very heavy persecution of the Iranians on the ground, and really the only way to assist in that is with the small-scale operations that we saw Israel starting to do. What stopped that? President Trump. Again, at the end of the day, the needle that's going to move the situation in Iran, that's going to bring about a new future for those people, and I do believe that they will achieve it, but it's going to have to come from the people. So that's what we need to see on that front.
Yossi, do you think that in 60 days from the signing of this MOU that there will be no final agreement, there will be an extension of discussion, or we will return to kinetic warfare?
Well, first of all, I doubt that we should be able to reach an agreement within 60 days because both sides are in a position where they cannot show the flexibility and the concessions that are necessary in order to reach an agreement because of their own audience and because of their own commitments. I mean, I don't think that President Trump can enter an agreement that does not put an end to the Iran nuclear project. And at the same time, I don't believe that Kalibaf is able to sell an agreement that puts an end to this project. So I don't think that we are going to reach an agreement. That said, I do think that there's a chance of extension because of all kinds of timetables that both sides have. So we can see an extension. And I have to emphasize in this respect two things. First of all, from an Israeli point of view, we should regard this matter of ceasefire and negotiations as something that should not hamper our determination to keep control of all these areas where we, unlike the other Western countries, do put boots on the ground in order to defend ourselves, in order to guarantee that we have defensible borders, both in Lebanon, in Gaza, in Syria, in the Judea and Samaria area. All these places we should go and do what's necessary, regardless of the ongoing negotiations. That is extremely important. I'm happy to see that for the first time today, President Trump shows some understanding to this policy. That's a major achievement. Secondly, we should encourage the Americans to understand what needs to be in a final agreement, because they sometimes tend to forget. It's not that they don't know, but they tend to forget occasionally. So we have to make sure that this agreement should put an end entirely to the ability of the Iranians to produce nuclear weapons in the future. That is necessary. No enrichment, taking out all of the enriched uranium out of Iran, having a verification and monitoring system that can be relied upon. All of these things are critical, and no ballistic missiles that can carry nuclear weapons.
Eminently. What's next for the American government and for the American media and the American population in this war?
Well, I have 12 seconds, so I can't answer all of that in 12 seconds. But I think we are going to see the United States continuing to make every effort, including efforts they shouldn't be making, to make a deal with the Islamic Republic. I think this is a strategic mistake. And we've mentioned the nuclear, we mentioned the ballistic missiles, but I do want to add on to that, that the issue of the proxies is a huge issue. It's not being discussed at all. It's not a part of the agenda. And even more concerning is that we're talking about the release of billions of dollars to the Islamic Republic of Iran, which for 47 years has used every single dollar, shekel, whatever currency you want to count in, to go towards those terror proxies, to destabilize this region, to launch wars, to murder civilians all over this region. And the President of the United States is really throwing them under the bus throughout this region, not just the state of Israel, but the rest of the region as well, that has been receiving hundreds of ballistic missiles, drone attacks, ongoing violence, civil wars even prior to this wave of conflict. And that's something that we cannot allow. And for that reason, I personally am against any deal that releases funds to the Islamic Republic of Iran, because as long as this regime is in power, they will continue to use every dollar towards terrorism, and that's not something we should allow.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
We're only 1 minute over.